The chill had settled deep within the walls of the Grand Hanug, long before winter's first breath. It wasn't the kind of cold that seeped from the wind, but a pervasive, unnatural frigidity that clung to the air like a shroud. Bagminjun, the newly appointed magistrate, sat in his opulent sarangbang, a cup of warm kai steaming before him, yet a shiver traced its way down his spine. He dismissed it as the draft from a poorly sealed hanji door, but then his eyes fell upon the seogdung, the magnificent stone lantern that stood sentinel in his madang. Its granite surface seemed to absorb the twilight, casting shadows that writhed and stretched, longer than they should have been in the fading light. He watched transfixed, as a faint, indistinct form seemed to flicker within one of those twisting shadows, at the very base of the lantern. It was gone in an instant, a trick of the light, he told himself. But the chill in the air intensified, and a faint, mournful sigh seemed to whisper from the depths of the marang, just beyond his reach. That mournful sigh, barely perceptible, was easily forgotten amidst the rush of Bagminjun's new life. He had arrived in Gyeonggi-do with a heart swollen with ambition, his gaze fixed solely on climbing the ladder of power and wealth. His newly acquired manor, with its elegant gyewa-tiled roofs and sprawling madang, was merely a stepping stone, a symbol of his ascent. Yet, even as he relished the deference shown by his Heindel and the comfortable luxury of his surroundings, he felt a gnawing hunger for more. He desired land, fertile, productive land that would swell his coffers and solidify his position among the local yangban. His eyes, ever keen for opportunity, soon fixed upon a particular stretch of rice paddies nestled beside a winding stream, renowned for its abundant harvests. This land, however, belonged to a simple, kind woman known only as Ai, a widow who had tended it herself with meticulous care for decades. Her small, humble hanug sat modestly amidst the verdant fields, a stark contrast to the grandeur Bagminjun now commanded. It was this contrast, this humble claim on such valuable earth, that fueled Bagminjun's avarice. He summoned Widow Ai to his sarangbang, her slight frame, clad in a faded indigo jogori, looking utterly out of place amidst the rich silks and lacquered wood. Bagminjun, in his commanding dark green dopo, made his intentions clear. He would acquire her land by any means necessary. Widow Ai, a woman in her late 50s, her face weathered but firm, pleaded, explaining that the land had been her family's for generations, her sole means of survival. Her tears and dignified appeals fell on deaf ears. Bagminjun, unmoved by her plight, used his official authority, twisting regulations and threatening false accusations until she had no choice but to relinquish her precious fields. Broken and bereft, Widow Ai returned to her small hanug. The injustice crushed her spirit faster than any illness. Within a week, she was gone, her body found peacefully in her tiny madang, a single sorrowful tear dried upon her cheek. Bagminjun, meanwhile, had the exquisite seogdung from her modest garden, a cherished family heirloom, relocated to his own madang, a trophy of his latest acquisition. The seogdung, now standing prominently in Bagminjun's madang, seemed to emit an unsettling aura. Soon after Widow East's death and the lantern's relocation, strange occurrences began to plague the magistrate's lavish manor. At first, they were subtle, the faint scent of lilies, a fragrance Widow Eye had cherished, would drift through the halls at night, only to vanish without a trace. Then came the whispers, soft and mournful, carried on the wind that seemed to curl specifically around the Daecheong Hall. Objects, particularly small, cherished items belonging to Bagminjun, would mysteriously disappear from his sarangbang, only to reappear days later in unexpected places, often subtly damaged. The Heindel grew increasingly uneasy, speaking in hushed tones of a presence in the Hanog, a cold breath on their necks in empty corridors, or the distinct sound of weeping from the marang when no one was there. Bagminjun, ever the rationalist, dismissed their fears as superstitious nonsense, blaming drafts or rodents. Yet he too found himself glancing towards the Seogdung at night, a prickle of unease growing in his guts. One evening, as the moon hung full and white over the Giwa-tiled roofs, he distinctly saw a shadow, taller and more defined than any cast by the lantern itself, drift slowly past his Hanji screen, pausing directly outside his ambang. The shadow outside his anbang was undeniable, an icy spike of fear piercing Bagminjun's carefully constructed calm. The hauntings escalated, no longer content with subtle hints. The scent of lilies became overpowering, choking the air in his private chambers. The whispers transformed into a clear, sorrowful wail that echoed through the empty Hanog, often emanating directly from the Madang, right near the Seogdung. One terrified Hain confessed to seeing a pale, translucent figure near the lantern at dawn, its form indistinct but undeniably female, clad in white. Another spoke of how Widow Eye had treasured that very Seogdung, having inherited it from her own mother, and how she would often sit beside it, tending to her garden. The pieces began to click into place for Bagminjun, a chilling mosaic of his own making. The lantern was not just a symbol of his conquest. It was a conduit, a vessel for a lingering grief. It seemed to pulse with a silent, spectral energy. He tried to have it moved, but the Heindel, trembling with fear, refused to touch it. He even attempted to smash it himself, but each blow of his heavy staff seemed to meet an invisible, unyielding force, the granite remaining unscratched. The Seogdung, now an unmovable, unbreakable monument to his cruelty, began to dominate Bagminjun's waking thoughts and haunt his dreams. One night, the scent of lilies was so potent, the wailing so close, that he could not escape its embrace. He fell into a feverish sleep, plagued by a vivid nightmare. He was standing in Widow Ormi's humble madang, but it was overgrown and desolate. The Seogdung stood there, shrouded in mist. Suddenly, the mist coalesced, forming the spectral image of Widow Eye, no longer indistinct, but clear and terrifying. She was clad in white sobog, her hair unbound, her face pale and etched with unspeakable sorrow, her eyes hollow pits of vengeance. She did not speak, but her presence radiated a profound suffering that twisted into pure, icy hatred directed solely at him. As she raised a translucent hand, pointing directly at Bagminjun, he saw her lips form a single, silent word, a name he knew belonged to the land he had stolen. He awoke in a cold sweat, screaming. The image burned into his mind. It was no mere haunting. It was a personal vendetta, and he was the sole target of her eternal wrath. The nightmare was merely a prelude. That night, the wind howled like 1,000 grieving souls, rattling the Hanji doors of Bagminjun's ambang. He lay trembling on his ondo floor, clutching the thick silk blankets. sweat beating on his brow despite the unnatural cold. Then the door to his ambang slowly, silently began to slide open. Standing in the darkened doorway, framed by the moonlight pouring into the madang, was Widow Wee's Guisin, clear and solid as if she were alive, yet radiating an impossible cold. Her white sobog billowed as if in an unseen wind, her unbound hair swaying. Her eyes, filled with the suffering of her unjust death, now blazed with an infernal light. She drifted into the room, silent as falling snow, a spectral hand reaching out. Bagminjin screamed, scrambling backwards, his pleas for mercy caught in his throat, but the Guisin was relentless. She moved towards him, and as she passed the Sogdung in the madang, the lantern's light, which had been flickering erratically, suddenly flared with an unholy brilliance, casting enormous, dancing shadows that engulfed the entire room. The Guisin's form seemed to merge with these shadows, growing larger, more monstrous, her spectral hand closing around his throat with an icy grip that stole his breath and his voice. The next morning, an unnatural silence hung over the magistrate's grand hanog. The wind had died down, but the air remained heavy, thick with a lingering cold that seemed to permeate every surface. The terrified Haindul, having spent the night huddled in their quarters, emerged cautiously into the madang. They found Bagminjun's ambang door ajar, the room in disarray, but the magistrate himself was gone. Not a trace remained. His expensive dopo lay discarded, his polished gas hat upturned on the ondol floor. But Bagminjun had vanished as if swallowed by the very shadows he had once dismissed. The Haindul, overcome by terror and convinced of the manor's curse, fled, abandoning their posts and leaving behind all their possessions. News of the magistrate's mysterious disappearance, coupled with the chilling tales of the haunting, spread like wildfire throughout Gyeonggi-do. No one dared to approach the manor again. The once lavish hanog, a testament to Bagminjun's ambition, now stood desolate and empty, its grand daemon gate sagging on rusted hinges, its beautiful giwa-tiled roofs slowly gathering moss. The fertile lands he had so greedily seized lay untended, choked by weeds, yielding nothing but sorrow. Years passed, yet the magistrate's manor remained untouched, a silent testament to a greedy man's downfall. Villagers, even those from distant hamlets, would avert their gaze when passing the property, whispering cautionary tales of the ghost of Widow Ai and the magistrate who vanished without a trace. The Grand Daemon, once a symbol of authority, now stood permanently ajar, a gaping maw inviting nothing but dread. Vines crept relentlessly up the intricately carved wooden pillars, and the elegant giwa tiles were cracked and crumbling. But in the center of the desolate madang, amidst the decaying beauty, the Sogdung still stood, pristine and unbroken, as if immune to the ravages of time and neglect. At twilight, when the sun dipped below the Gyeonggi-do hills, its unlit stones still seemed to absorb the fading light, casting long, twisting shadows that danced in the empty courtyard. And sometimes, when the wind was just right, a faint, mournful sigh could still be heard, a chilling echo from a past that refused to be forgotten, a solemn reminder that justice, though sometimes delayed, will always find its way, carried on the very shadows of those who were wronged.